Japanese animation. Love it or hate it, the genre has produced some of the most beautiful animated movies the world has ever seen. And here are 10 of the very best. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So, I'm 34 years old and I'm proud to say that I love cartoons. And no, I don't have a problem. I can stop whenever I want. Animated movies are often overlooked and dismissed as being just for kids. Pfft, whatever. But over the years, the world of animation has been pushing the boundaries of what cinema can really achieve. Visually, there's just no other genre that can test the limits of imagination the way animation can. And Japanese animation has given us some of the most weird, wonderful and fantastical films we've seen to date. Not only are they visually stunning, but they're so often emotionally captivating, with authentic characters and compelling storylines. So whether you're down in the dumps, feeling the general stress of the overall crapfest that is 2020, or just suffer from crippling anxiety like me, then this list is for you. First up is Maquia, When the Promised Flower Blooms. Written and directed by Mori, the film tells us the story of Maquia, a lonely girl who is a member of the Eolf, a group of immortals who stop aging in their teens and spend their days weaving a special cloth called hibiol. After war hits her home, Maquia is thrown into the world of mortals, where she shortly comes across an orphan baby who has also survived the brutalities of the war and decides to adopt him, naming him Ariel. We then follow these two as they navigate the world and try to make a life for themselves. The film gives such a touching look at motherhood and human relationships, and this really grounds the more fantastical elements of the story. It's such a perfect balance between the personal, intimate stories of the characters and the much wider narrative of ancient kingdoms at war. The visuals in the film are not only beautiful, but they cleverly reflect the different emotions from scene to scene, and you just can't help but get totally absorbed. Maquia is a wonderful story which is told beautifully through insightful dialogue, complex characters, and phenomenal animation. Just a warning though, this film will make you ugly cry. Next on the list is 5 centimeters per second. Directed by Makoto Shinkai, the film is broken down into 3 parts which span over different time periods, all of which centre around a guy named Takaki and his best friend Akari. After Akari is forced to move away, the two stay in touch by writing letters to each other. But as time goes on, the distance between them starts to grow, and as it often does, life starts to get in the way. I won't give too much away, but the story gives an incredibly heartfelt glimpse of what it is to really love and miss someone, and as the two main characters watch the cherry blossoms together, we get some beautiful visual representation of how they're both feeling. The film is only about an hour long, but it crams in so much emotion and sentiment that it really doesn't feel that way. The director does a wonderful job of tugging on those heartstrings, and we really feel Takaki's longing for the past as he tries to navigate adult life. I mean, we've all been there. In places, it deals with quite complex and obscure emotions, but it's really the simplicity and innocence of the film which you can really connect to in a very personal way. At number 3, it's Garden of Words, another Makoto Shinkai film in which we again see a connection between two people, but in a very different way. It focuses on an aspiring young shoemaker named Takao and a mysterious older woman, Yukari. They meet at a public garden and keep going back to the same place on rainy mornings and start to get to know each other. While Takao shares his story and his passion for shoes, Yukari doesn't really say much about herself at all, and it seems she's avoiding some problems in her life. The scenes in the garden are some of the most beautiful artwork I've seen in an animation, and the attention to detail really makes you feel like you're right there in the garden with them. The film also uses some scenes with very little dialogue, but fills those gaps with incredibly rich soundscapes, which just draws you in further. This film is a touching look at real human connection and what a difference one person can make to another's life, even in the smallest ways. It's one of the most stunningly animated films on the list, so definitely worth a look. Up next is Hotarubi no Mori, which, translated, means Into the Forest of Fireflies Light. Not to be confused with Ghibli's The Grave of Fireflies, which is just harrowing. I haven't been that disturbed since Artax and the Neverending Story. This sweet little film, however, is about the relationship between a young girl named Hotaru and a boy who lives in the forest named Jin. She first meets Jin when she's 6 years old and visiting her uncle for the summer. She gets lost in an enchanted forest, and Jin helps her to get home. But he also tells her that he can't be touched by a human being, or he'll disappear. Hotaru returns each summer to play and explore the forest with Jin. But as time goes on, we notice that Jin doesn't seem to age. The story is one of friendship and love when two people are at their loneliest. Now, this is another short film at only 45 minutes long, and although that doesn't give us much time to understand the forest and the other characters that live there, it shows us just enough to get that sense of magic and mystery around Jin and his home, while also allowing his relationship with Hotaru to blossom. The film has some gorgeous settings and wonderfully strange characters, and although a little bittersweet, it's a perfect example of how even the briefest encounters can leave a lasting impression. Now for something a little different on the list, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. When a young schoolgirl named Makoto realises she has the ability to go back in time, she starts to use that power to frivolously fix the problems in her life. As she does so, she starts to realise that things aren't quite as simple as that. The more she tries to fix things, the worse they seem to get. I mean, I don't have to time travel to know how that feels, am I right? Fixing one problem just seems to cause another, and after a while, we realise that really, Makoto is just trying to keep her friendships and life from changing. The film touches on the heartwarming awkwardness of teenage love and the fear of growing up and moving on. The simplistic art style and colour scheme really give the feel of youthful summers and carefree fun. And with a great twist at the end, it's a delightfully nostalgic and moving watch. Next up is the first Ghibli film to make the list. Come on, you knew they were coming. There are so many of these films that could have made it, but I decided to go with my personal favourites. When Marnie Was There is a beautiful tale of a young girl named Anna who just doesn't feel like she fits in and shuts other people out. After an asthma attack, Anna is sent to the country to stay with some relatives for a change of air. Still feeling withdrawn from the world, she takes herself down to the marsh where she meets a mysterious girl named Marnie. The two quickly become very close, and Anna finally starts to feel the warmth of friendship. But there seems to be something a little strange about Marnie, and as the film goes on, we start to question, is she real? Is she a ghost? Is Anna dreaming? Is this just some LSD-induced nightmare? Well, you'll have to watch to find out. Ghibli is so well known for its beautiful hand-painted scenery and stunning landscapes, and this film is no exception. The story is filled with hope, love, and self-acceptance, and that's just why it's one of my all-time favourites. Moving on to number 7, we have A Silent Voice. The film starts out with a young boy named Shoya, who's contemplating suicide, but changing his mind at the last minute, he starts to think back on what got him there. As a young boy, he and some friends were particularly cruel to a deaf girl, Shoko, who had recently started at his school. After things go a step too far, Shoko has to move schools, and becoming the scapegoat, Shoya is then rejected by his friends and the rest of the school and becomes the subject of bullying himself. The rest of the story then follows his path to redemption as he learns sign language and tracks down Shoko in an attempt to make things right. This is one of the best written animated films I've seen in a long time. It weaves the characters' stories together beautifully and gives us a real insight into the delicate nature of friendship and the positive impact that can come from opening yourself up to people. It's heartbreaking, touching, and breathtaking. So strap yourself in and prepare for an emotional roller coaster. Next, we have one more Makoto Shinkai film. Come on, he makes gorgeous films, and I think I saved the best for last. Your Name is a spectacular story of two teenagers, Mitsuha and Taki, who inexplicably begin to switch bodies when they go to sleep. Trying to figure out what's happening, they leave messages for one another while trying to fit into each other's lives. And as they inevitably get to know one another in this unique way, they start to form a connection. But when they decide to meet in real life, things get a little complicated. This is another story with an amazing twist, so I won't give any more away, but it's such an adventure, and there's some delightful humour that comes through. With incredibly bright and detailed animation, the wonder and amazement at the astronomical events we see makes this film a real showstopper. next film is another fantastical story, Wolf Children. Told from the perspective of a young girl named Yuki, she tells us the story of her mother Hana, who married a man who could change into a wolf. But shortly after they have their second child, Ame, he's killed while out hunting for food. Alone, and with no idea how to raise 2 wolf children, Hana decides to move way out to the country to keep them safe. We then follow Hana on her journey through life as she tries to be the best mother she can and make a home for her family. Considering the fantasy elements in the story, it stays totally grounded, and we get to see how different the 2 wolf children become as they grow. Ame wanting to leave his family behind and live as a wolf on the mountain, and Yuki desperately trying to fit in with her human peers. The film is so well put together, and I particularly love how the film plays with sound through emotive and dramatic scenes. Ame! It's a raw and emotional look into human nature and what it means to be a family. This is a stunning film that will leave you feeling all warm and fuzzy inside. Now for my absolute all-time favouriteest animated film ever, Howl's Moving Castle. I couldn't just have one Ghibli on the list. This is the story of Sophie, a timid young hatmaker who gets swept up in a rivalry between magicians and witches. After being changed into an old woman and not knowing what else to do, she sets out to find a way to break the curse. While wandering the wastes, she comes across the home of a powerful wizard named Howl and starts working as the cleaning lady. Here she meets Calcifer, a fire demon who keeps the magical house moving, and Markle, a young magician's apprentice who guards the 4-way door to other lands. Sophie soon realises that Calcifer and Howl are bound together by a curse of their own, and so as Howl is drawn into a war of neighbouring kingdoms and starts pushing his magic to its limits, it's up to poor old Sophie to try and save him too. This is one of the most fantastical and intricate stories, which is based on a book by Diane Wynne Jones. Magnificently adapted to the screen, with a rich and colourful world that only Miyazaki could create, Howl's Moving Castle is visually stunning, funny, and will take you on a completely bewitching adventure. So there we have it, 10 utterly beautiful anime films you should definitely watch. Like, right now. If you like that kind of thing. Which, if you've made it this far, I'm assuming you do. So get to it! Let me know your favourite anime film in the comments below. And if you liked this list, then please do remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!